Thank you for joining us for this episode of UMBC's Mic'd Up podcast. I am here with Anthony. He is going to talk about his experience with the cybersecurity graduate program. Welcome, Anthony.
Hey, good morning.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your professional endeavors and the educational journey that brought you to UMBC?
Sure. So I actually did my undergraduate degree in information systems from UMBC. So finished that in 2016. And right after that, during my time at UMBC in undergrad, I did a couple internships. It was a company called Osera. They're a nonprofit. They were in Northern Virginia, supported the Department of Veterans Affairs. So we had a contract with them working on open source software regarding their hospital information system. So I ended up out of college working there for 4 years. And our funding and our contract kind of whittled down in that last year, and we ended up shutting down the company. So in February of 2020, it was time to look for something new. My, I guess, third year there, as I mentioned, things were kind of slowing down as we were looking for funding. I had a little time on my hands, so I looked into graduate school, and that's what led me to the cybersecurity program. So I took 2.5 years to complete the program. But yeah, in February 2020, I was looking for employment. It was right before the pandemic, so I interviewed in person with the Office of Cyber Infrastructure and Computational Biology inside of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. So I became an IT project coordinator in the project management branch of OCICB. And so I interviewed in person on like March 3rd or something. And unfortunately, I haven't ever been in the office again, but very fortunately, I've been employed for the past 1.5 years, and really enjoying my time there. And I've gotten to learn more. I was healthcare IT, and now this is very, scientific research related to information systems. So still right up my alley, but I'm really enjoying it.
Oh, that's fantastic, Anthony. Really happy to hear that. Were you still in the graduate program when you applied to this particular organization?
Yeah, so I was able to have it on my resume as completing in 2021. I was able to tell them, yeah, I'm in the middle of the semester right now. I've got 2 more to go, and I'll have this, cybersecurity degree, including the certificate I was able to complete. I'd love to talk about that at some point. I think that's a really big plus of the program. I was able to onboard a new job and, complete, the curriculum courses I needed to.
Well, now that you mentioned it, let's jump into that whole certificate aspect of the program. What was it that appealed to you the most about that?
Well, the way it's set up is, you got your 6 core classes and you got 4 electives, and it's up to you what you want to do with those 4 electives. So you can pick your certificate. You could just take, maybe 2 of one and 2 of the other and not necessarily get that certificate, but get, the knowledge and the diverse areas of just exposure to everything. But yeah, I decided to do I'm very policy based. So I felt like my information systems background kind of set me up to go policy management, over technical operations. So I ended up doing that, and yeah, it's nice to be able to have a certificate, and it really kind of, for me, made it feel like I went on a track, so I was focused on the policy side of cybersecurity.
Great. So in addition to your master's degree, you have a certificate as well. So you've got those 2 credentials that are really powerful when you get out there in the workforce. Right. In terms of applying to the program, I always like to ask, a lot of students, a lot of prospective students have this sort of, maybe fear might not be the right word, but maybe hesitation about applying to the program, because there are many questions that run through a prospective student's mind. And could you talk me through what that was like for you? Did you have a slight hesitation at all? And, how did you overcome that? What was it that said, okay, I'm going to do this because it's totally worth doing?
That's actually an easy one. I mean, of course I was, worried about workload, how I was going to pay for it, and, whether I was going to have the time. And there was an open house. So I participated at the Shady Grove campus, and they had an open house one night. I showed up, and I talked to the director of the program. I got to speak to a lot of students that I ended up, in my intro classes with, and other professors were there. So, they really sold it to me really just by telling me exactly what I was getting myself into. And, answering those questions, whether it's the answers you're looking for or not, I think figuring out the unknown helped me get to the point where, hey, I want to get into this.
Yeah, the questioning of the unknown is really important. That's critical thinking skills right there, 101, which is really important when you are a professional out in the world. And being able to dive into that sort of analysis mode to be able to see, hey, is this, are these answers what I am looking for, not looking for? Is it okay if it's not what I'm looking for? And, did they address it in a way that made it seem like, well, that's even more important than what I thought? So those are all really important questions. I know for myself, I was considering a graduate program last year, August 2020. And I had those same exact questions. I ended up talking with the program director, whom I know very well because I market the program, but I also talked to some instructors in the program. And, I had questions, specific questions, the same thing about workload, about things of that sort. I haven't been to school in 30 years. I'm aging myself, but it had been 30 years. I'm a non-traditional student by those standards. And I was concerned. I haven't been in a college environment since 1997. And they assured me that this is all set up to help people succeed. Why did you choose the cybersecurity program? Because you did mention something about health information technology. And I know we do have a graduate program in that as well. So had you looked into that? And was there something specific about the cybersecurity graduate program that made you say, this is the one that is definitely made for me?
Yeah, there's a few things there, actually. When I enrolled in the technical management degree. So I have the project management professional certification. I've always been doing, project management for IT. And so I thought technical management, that sounds like what I've been doing already. Let's get, further educated in it. And I was able to use my electives. So my first 2 semesters, I took, a core class each semester in technical management, and then an elective that could go towards the cybersecurity policy certificate. And after the first year, as much as I did love the technical management courses, I was sold in the cybersecurity program. So I made the switch. I ended up taking, I guess, an extra class. But it was definitely the right decision. It was something that they just pulled me in with my IT background already. And I really can't imagine not doing the cybersecurity program at this point, because just being an IT project coordinator and implementing, policies from the government level, it's so cybersecurity focused that I would have been picking up on these things on the go when I really showed up with, I'd completed at least 4 semesters, and I knew this stuff just from talking to classmates and obviously the coursework. But yeah, so, I went from technical management to cybersecurity.
What is it about the cybersecurity industry that you love the most?
I think a lot of people, love it some for that unknown. They hear things about it, and it can be interesting, it can be intimidating, but overall, it's really manageable, especially with this program. We had software engineers, we had political science graduates, we had long time, other industry professionals showing up to intro classes. And the professor, specifically in the intro, made it work for all levels of understanding, because there is a lot of entry points in this program. And I think because it worked for everyone is one reason it worked for me, because you know, some people had to get up to speed on information systems. I didn't necessarily have to do that, so I was already looking at this, and this in the cybersecurity world. But at, you know, at the end of that course, we're all ready for the next one. But I think for me, the big thing that I like about it is that I almost have to know it. So I like having the education and not having to, you know, have my coworkers pick up my slack, because I'm in this field that has now turned in to cybersecurity and information systems, not just developing IT systems, and it's getting embedded, and you know, for the better.
Now, in your experience with going to graduate school, having your master's now with a certificate as well, do you feel that what you expected out of the program that you received? And secondly, are you glad, like, do you feel it's necessary for somebody in your field to have that advanced education?
Well, I think it's a leg up for sure, both resume wise and you know, when you're hands on in your position. Um, you know, whether you get it on the job or you know, through a program. For me, I think I needed a degree program like this. Even if I didn't get the degree, I mean, taking a few classes just would have been a huge help anyways. I wasn't getting the experience in my job. You know, we were looking for funding, so I was, you know, trying to compete contracts and do different stuff I'd never done before. It was all fun, but you know, I would have felt a little left out applying for jobs, doing IT project management when I had been a little bit distant from it. But having this, I mean, it was really a side gig that I was learning, you know, intensive, you know, cybersecurity for IT. And I mean, it was almost as good as experience, to be honest, whether that said it on the resume or, you know, just how it translated to my day to day.
Yeah, that applied factor of the program is really important.
Yeah, it's very applied.
Hmm. Now, what challenged or surprised you once you started into the program? Was there something that did do that to you?
Yeah, the way the program is set up, being a master's of professional studies, it implements the hands-on experience. And a lot of that's done in a realistic setting, which is with a group of people. So learning to work with a group of people throughout the cybersecurity, you know, MPS degree at UMBC really helped me translate that to real world applications when I'm working in my job. With a group, you're delegating work, you're figuring out people's strengths and weaknesses. A lot of people in the program didn't have that experience. I had some of it. So people kind of fell into their roles, and it really mimicked a time where you're working on a project. You got deadlines, you got things you got to accomplish. You know, it's very realistic.
That's a great answer.
Cool.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It does mimic the real world. You're doing projects that essentially you find out in the real world, and they help you to find solutions by challenging you, right? To think outside of the box
Mm.
and to come up with new strategies that otherwise you may never have come up with, because it does challenge you to dig deeper and find solutions to real
Yeah, and
world
I find it's a
issues.
lot different than doing a group project in undergrad. I think everyone has a level of maturity and understanding, because yeah, you know, 8 out of 10 people, I'd say, you know, have worked before full time. Um, so when you're working on a project, people take it as a job, and it's definitely very different.
What did you learn from your fellow students?
I learned a lot from my fellow students. The professors set it up in a way that they knew discussion was going to bring out a lot of information for a lot of different people. People with different backgrounds, some technical, some non-technical, having discussions, people asking questions you didn't know you needed to ask. There was one course I had where just kind of as some bonus exposure, we had a couple presentations throughout the semester where everyone picked a topic that kind of a trending cybersecurity issue, researched it, for a few weeks, and brought it to class and gave a quick presentation on it. And both through the presentations and then the follow-up discussion, I learned on topics. I learned how cryptocurrencies work, quantum computing. I remember things that I don't know. I guess I could have read up on it for a few weeks, but having this understanding from a peer, it really changed it for me. And I remember one professor just capitalizing on everyone's experiences to provide education to the rest of the class.
There's not, it's hard to explain to somebody who doesn't experience that peer-to-peer learning. It really is something dynamic that happens in the class when you have these critical discussions and you kind of view the world through different lenses. And you wouldn't have had that opportunity unless you put yourself in that situation, that environment of those critical discussions with people from different perspectives. And there's a lot of value to be derived from conversations like that, like you said, that you can't really pick up in a book. You can pick up some of it, but when you have that two-way dialogue, that exchange, it's rich. It's just full of just so much information, and that play on back and forth. That's where the real magic of a conversation takes hold, and some really great insights.
Yeah, if you don't know about it, I almost feel weird, like I'm downplaying, the coursework and the professor's experience that they bring to the learning process by talking about how great the peer-to-peer learning is. But it's true. It's just a great side effect of what you sign up for. And the best professors, they leverage it.
Speaking of best professors, could you talk a little bit about how the faculty engaged you all and what that was like, with their support, their collaboration in your learning, things of that sort?
Yeah, I thought the professors in this program, I think in my survey, I responded that the professors in this program were the best part. Everything they can bring to the table, how they've refined their curriculum, so that it's the most useful it can be to the students. But they bring their real world experiences to the classroom, and that was the most helpful thing for me. Almost every professor I had, I was able to relate to them, what they do, the company they worked for. My first professor in the cybersecurity program worked at a company that I knew very well. I worked with at my old job. I interviewed with them. So asking about what he does and how the company was for him, and how what we're talking about in the classroom relates to what they do. And if I was in an interview and I was talking about what I gained through this program, what would they want to hear? And so he obviously taught us stuff like that. I had another professor where I was in his class as I was interviewing at his organization. And I got so much good knowledge. How you're supposed to research the company before you read their whole website before you go in the interview. I was able to talk to someone there and get more detailed questions that I could ask. Government employees that were professors, they've seen this whole life cycle of IT and where it's going, where it's been. So all of that really played a good part in my learning experience. And specifically the coursework, everyone can have their gripes when you're taking a course, and there's mandatory assignments and everything. I never really felt I was doing busy work, or it was something I didn't think was going to further my education. It's really helping you succeed, rather than check boxes.
If you could talk to the person you were before you started this program, maybe the one who might have been a little hesitant about the workload and even the cost, if it was worth the investment, what would you say to that person right now?
I would tell them I'm not sure there's a better option. I'm in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. There's regional tuition. That's one cost thing that saved me. I was living in Northern Virginia at the time. I'm back in Rockville, but I didn't have to even think about that. UMBC was accommodating. Workload wise, it's meant for people that have full-time jobs. I mean, every professor acknowledges it. If you can get to courses in person, I highly suggest it. There's, everything's pretty much after 5 or on the weekends. But the hybrid and online are also, great courses as well. So I would definitely tell them to go for it. Just jump in. If you got to start slow on whatever works for you. For example, when I, knew that I was going to be looking for a new job, I dropped a course. So looking for a job was like a full-time job. So I had one course I was doing rather than the normal 2. And I still finish on time. So it's definitely flexible.
And my last question is, what was your biggest takeaway from the program?
Well, my biggest takeaway from the cybersecurity program is how doable cybersecurity is. When you're actually in the program and you're in the world of cybersecurity, it makes so much sense. It's not, wizardry, and I'm sure you make a lot of money someday, but it's so doable, and it's interesting, it's engaging, and it's going to set you up for opportunities in the future because of the importance and the immense opportunities that come along with it.
I can't think of a better way to end this conversation than on that incredible note.
Cool.
I want to thank you for being here with us today on UMBC's Mic'd Up podcast. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of UMBC's Mic'd Up. We hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to learn more about UMBC's graduate program in cybersecurity, please visit us at cyber.umbc.edu.